Yesterday was a terrific day to be Wyatt. The Vikings won, the Bills won, the Eagles got beat to a powder again, and realistically, I just don't think yesterday could have played out much better in terms of my happiness. Suppose the Vikings game could have been more entertaining, but we'll talk about that, trust me. Anyway, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to my Week 14 NFL reactions. We got a lot to talk about, so before we hop right into it, don't forget to use code WyattzWorld on G Fuel or Prize Picks. You can save yourself a discount on any G Fuel products or match up to $100 of your first deposit. And don't forget that I'm once again partnered with ParentPresents.com this holiday season, so if you still need to find mom or dad the perfect Christmas gift, hit the link in my bio, take the quiz, and get matched up with the perfect gift for mom or dad. I mean, I wouldn't buy this for your dad unless he's a loser, but you get the point. Anyway, that's all I got. Let's get into the video. Alright, so first off, we will kind of fly through this because I already reacted to it on Friday, but we had the Patriots upsetting the Pittsburgh Steelers. I still can't quite believe this is happening right now. The Steelers dropping back-to-back games against 2-10 teams. Like, what in the world? For those who missed the game, on the Patriots side of things, Bailey Zappi lit up Pittsburgh, 240, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Run game didn't do a whole lot, but Ezekiel Elliott had 7 receptions for 72 yards and a touchdown. And Hunter Henry also had 2 touchdowns and 40 yards, while Juju led the team with 90. If you look at this, it's actually really sad because there were only 3 healthy receivers to play in this game and Jalen Reagor still couldn't get a catch. If you're looking at the Steelers, Mitch was pretty lousy. He did have a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown. The defense was able to get a couple sacks and an interception, but unfortunately with or without Matt Canada, it's again the offense that is just coming up short in stalls time after time after time. It's unfortunate, but what is Pittsburgh's next move going to be? Because I gotta know. Now moving on, we got the Texans losing to the Jets 30-6. Ha! So yesterday I had a bunch of family over and I was cooking a bunch of food during the noon games, but I did get to see a lot of this game on Red Zone, and what happened? CJ ended up getting hurt, but the Jets defense dominated him. He was only 10 for 23 for 91 yards. Devin Singletary was the only source of points. Receiving was led by Brevin Jordan. This is one of those games like I told the Lions when they lost to Baltimore. Like, shit happens, man. I really don't know what else to say about this. We peek at the Jets side of things now. Zach Wilson probably had his career game, which is funny because someone in my Twitch asked me if I thought he was going to have a turnaround, and I said absolutely not, but he did. Run was pretty lousy. Receiving was led by Garrett Wilson, who had 9 for 108, but Breece Hall had 8 for 86 and a touchdown. Randall Cobb scored a touchdown in 2023. The defense also had 4 sacks in the day, one of them coming from Solomon Thomas. Never too late to not be a bust, right? In all sincerity, this game was absolutely crazy, though. I never expected this to happen. Moving on, we got the thriller of the Rams at the Ravens, and I'm pretty sure I predicted this to be a shootout, right? This was a crazy game, though, and the Rams just fell short in OT, but man, they are so close to being like a dominant team. Stafford was great, 294, 3 touchdowns. Kyron Williams, just a casual 114 rushing yards. Cooper led the receiving with 115. Puka had 84. Davis, Allen, DeMarcus, and Cooper Kupp all scored touchdowns. Defense also had 2 sacks and a pick. Like, they played a complete game, man. Well, aside from allowing 37 points. Looking at Baltimore now, Lamar, 316, 3 touchdowns, 1 turnover, and also 70 rushing yards. Great game. Odell is continuing to pop off in the second half, 4 for 97, while Isaiah Likely had 5 for 83, and Zay Flowers had 6 for 60, and they all scored a touchdown. Defense obviously didn't play well, allowing 31 points, but with all things considered, they still got the job done since Baltimore got the win. Kickers also combined for almost 30 points this game. It was just all around wild, and GG to Baltimore. Again, you guys really are just a dominant force. Up next, we got the Panthers losing to the Saints, 28-6. Oh. I don't even know what to say about this. I guess question number 1 is why did Miles only get 10 carries to Chuba's 23 when Miles was literally doubling Chuba's production? The only other question I would have is how did Bryce manage to only complete 13 passes out of 36 attempts? This is XFL territory, you guys. Anyway, looking at the Saints now, they really didn't do all that well offensively. Not as well as you would have thought they did. Derek Carr only threw for 119, but he did have 2 touchdowns. Kamara had 56 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. However, as you can see, the receiving was led by A.T. Perry with 1 catch for 44 yards, while Olave and Jimmy Graham once again are scoring the points for the team. Looks like they did have about 4 or 5 sacks on defense, though, so other than just dominating in the secondary, they were also disruptive up front. This was a horrid game, Carolina. Now moving on, we got the Colts losing to the Bengals, and I wisely picked Cincinnati on this one. I don't know what to say other than Jake Browning is a decent quarterback. This is 3 games now, 3 solid performances. 275, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 pick. Mixon ran for 79 and 1 touchdown. Jake Browning also had a rushing touchdown. Receiving was led by Chase Brown, who had 3 for 80 and a touchdown. Tanner Hudson scored the other touchdown there receiving. And the defense was led by BJ Hill with an interception and Trey Hendrickson with 2 sacks. Looking at the Colts now, Minshew only threw for 240, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Zach Moss was completely shut down, 13 carries for 28 yards. Receiving was led by Michael Pittman, who had 8 for 95. He found a way to have a good game, always does. And their defense almost failed to make a mark on the sack or pick territory, but Rodney Harrison Jr. came up clutch, allowing them to at least have something to gloat about. I still like Indy, but like I said, I wisely didn't pick you here. You only beat the really bad teams, and since he's not really bad. Moving on now, we got the Buccaneers beating the Falcons, and I think I foolishly chose Atlanta. Looking at Tampa first here, we had a lot of low throwing numbers this week. Baker only threw for 144, but did have 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. As far as the rest of the offense goes, Rachaad White actually ran for 102, caught for 30, and a touchdown. He's trying to shut me up, and we're getting really close to it. Chris Godwin led receiving at 53 yards. Cade Otton scored the other touchdown. And the defense is highlighted by Carlton Davis with an interception, and the 3 sacks they got from Mr. U of M, Antoine Winfield Jr., Kalijah Cansey, and Greg Gaines. Speaking at Atlanta now, Ritter kind of balled out, 347, 1 touchdown. Running was kind of lousy, but there was 2 scores out of it. And the receiving exploded with Drake London having 10 receptions for 172 yards. While Kyle Pitts was able to score a touchdown as well. Like, oh my God. Listen, Arthur Smith, you might have come up short this game, but I can guarantee you your fan base is much happier with you than they would have been if you would have sat your best players to spite fantasy like you usually did. This was a good loss. And now moving on, we got Jacksonville at Cleveland, and I made the right choice here too. I didn't think it looked good for Jacksonville. As you can see here, Trevor had 3 touchdowns, but he also had 3 interceptions. Running was really lousy other than the rushing touchdown they somehow forced. Receiving was led by Evan Ingram with 95 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Parker Washington caught the other touchdown. And their defense did have a sack and a pick, but that's all there is to highlight when they allowed 31 points. Still don't think they should have played Trevor, but at the same time, that's probably what gave him a chance anyway. Looking at Cleveland now, Mr. Flacco is back, 311, 3 touchdowns. Running was led by Jerome Ford, however, Kareem Hunt stole the touchdown. And their receiving was led by David Njoku, who had 6 receptions for 91 yards, 2 touchdowns, and followed by Amari Cooper, who had 7 for 77, while David Bell got the other score. You know what's crazy is their defense had 3 interceptions and 4 sacks, and Denzel Ward still wasn't playing. Now we got the Lions losing to the Bears. You guys remember last week when I said I was hesitant to pick Detroit because they haven't been playing that good? They haven't even looked close to the team that they started out the year as. Turns out Uncle Wyatt wasn't so fucking crazy now, was he? Bad game by Detroit, dude. Goff, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 161. Both running backs actually ran for 66 yards exactly, while David Montgomery also averaged 6.6, which is fucked up, but Jahmyr Gibbs had the touchdown. Josh Reynolds scored the solo receiving touchdown. Amon-Ra only had 21 yards. And even though their defense did have 3 sacks, it wasn't enough to slow Chicago down. Looking at the Bears now, Fields threw for 223 and a touchdown while also running a touchdown in for 58 yards. On top of that, DJ Moore had a rushing touchdown, he had a receiving touchdown, led the team in receiving with 68 yards. Cole Kmet continues to emerge at 5 for 66, and if you look at the defense, it's no secret as to why Detroit struggled. I count 2 picks, 4 sacks, and a guy who had 13 tackles. Jeepers creepers. Detroit, you guys, you might not even win the division right now. It's scary. Moving on, we had the next beatdown in the 49ers history book where they kicked Seattle's ass 16-28. I also believe San Fran is now the #1 seed in the NFC. Looking at Seattle first, Drew Lock was the starter on the day. Geno was hurt, and Drew actually didn't play that bad. 22 for 31, 269, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Rushing was led by Charbonnet, who had 44 yards, and then Kenneth Walker only had 21. Not sure what that's about. Lockett led receiving at 89. DK had 52 and a touchdown, while Colby Parkinson had the other score. And Seattle's defense impressively did have 3 sacks and a pick, where another sack came from Leonard Williams. He's been a great addition. It's just too bad they suck now. Peeking at the bullies, Brock Purdy, 368, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Christian McCaffrey ran for a casual 145. Jordan Mason had a rushing touchdown. Debo had a rushing touchdown. Debo and Ayuk combined for nearly 300 receiving yards. Kittle and Debo had the receiving touchdowns. And the defense also had 2 interceptions and 4 sacks, where 1.5 of them came from Mr. Nick Bosa. Seattle, it is what it is. Like, what were you guys gonna do? And now moving on, we got the Vikings beating the Raiders, and I think the lowest scoring game ever, 3-0. My dad has legitimately been watching football for like 60 years, and he told me yesterday this was the worst game he's ever seen. Dude, nothing happened besides Josh Dobbs throwing Justin Jefferson into another injury because he can't throw anything in the numbers. Everything is too high. The most interesting part of this game, if you're asking me, is the fact that Madison ran for 66 yards and averaged 6.6. He's like the third running back to do that this week. Otherwise, like, this sucked. Looks like Mullins might be the new Viking starter now. I guess that's good because he played a lot better than Dobbs, but like, I don't know what else to fucking say about this game. It was so awful. Raiders had 5 sacks, didn't score a point. I guess all I have to say is I'm blessed Brian Flores is on the Vikings, and I don't ever want to see these two play again. Now we got the Broncos beating the Chargers, and yeah, it looks like the Chargers season might just be done. It already was, but it's done now. For those wondering why I'm saying that, no, it's not because they lost. It's because Justin Herbert is now out with a broken thumb, if I read correctly, which is more than likely the end of his season. I guess we can look at the Chargers here first. As you can see, Herbie only had a pick and 96 yards before he went out, and then was taken over by the former NDSU prodigy, Easton Stick. Carson Wentz, Easton Stick, Trey Lance, something about these NDSU guys that just don't work out. Anyway, rushing was led by Austin Eckler, 51 yards and a touchdown. Receiving was led by Quentin Johnston at 91 yards. And their defense did put together a couple sacks, which one of them was by Eric Kendricks, by the way. And then the other one came from Kenneth Murray, who also had 9 tackles. Keeping the Broncos now, Russ was 224, 2 touchdowns, 1 turnover, while Javonte Williams had 66 yards in the tud. Receiving was led by Cortland Sutton, who had another highlight reel catch, incredible, and Adam Trutman had the other one. Defense also had a very busy day, with Alex Singleton having 10 tackles to himself, as well as 6 sacks and a pick amongst everybody. That was domination, and I'm sorry, Justin Herbert. Now moving on, we got the Bills bouncing back and beating the Chiefs 20-17. Kansas City fans, I want you guys to hear me out. This is from me to you. Good game. I feel like you guys have watched me enough to know that I was gonna say that either way. I don't have animosity with you guys. We know each other, we clash heads, we always have great games. We won this time, awesome. As far as your quarterback goes, what an unprofessional, whiny, crying little bitch. I have never, ever seen a quarterback cry and bitch and piss and moan to the other quarterback when they're shaking hands after the game. What a fucking loser. The best part about it is how he's saying it's such a dog shit call when it was a blatant penalty. Kadarius Toney couldn't have been more offsides. And then my favorite part is people trying to bring out the picture of Von Miller apparently being offsides on the last play after the ball was snapped, which they're acting like now if they would have scored, we wouldn't have had 1 minute and 3 timeouts to walk right down there and do the same thing. Highlight the game real quick. Josh only threw for 233 and a touchdown, but he did have a huge rushing touchdown where his O-line literally shoved him like 10 yards in. James Cook led receiving at 5 for 83 and a touchdown. Defense was disruptive enough. AJ Epinesa got the interception on Pat. Tyler Bass was perfect on his kick, and we stood on business. As far as Kansas City goes, they had a couple good players too. Travis, 6 for 83. Rashee Rice, 7 for 72 and a score. I like those guys. But I've just got a little bitterness in my mouth because I have legitimately never ever seen a quarterback behave like Patrick Mahomes did at the end of the game. It was absolutely mind-boggling to me. Once again though, Chief fans, good game. Good game, Philly. Good game. As you can see here, they did not have an offensive touchdown. I mean, A.J. Brown had 94 yards. Devontae had 73. Hassan Reddick and Fletcher Cox combined for 3 sacks. But that's all the team did. Matter of fact, if it wasn't for Jalen Carter's fumble 6, it would have been 7-33. Dallas, though, they played well. Dak attack again, 271, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. Front runner MVP, a lock at this point. Running was a little lousy, but Rico did have a touchdown. And passing was led by Jake Ferguson narrowly, and then CeeDee Lamb right behind him, where also CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup caught touchdowns. Looking at their defense, Stephon Gilmore had 9 tackles, Micah Parsons had a sack, and these men alone are single-handedly responsible for holding Philly down, grabbing a leather belt, and whipping them in the bare ass for another 3 hours. Too bad it won't happen again this year, though, so I have to enjoy it while it lasts, right, Scully? All right, everybody, that is going to be all for my Week 14 reactions, though. If you guys are continuing to enjoy my content, you already know what to do to show support, and please turn that bell on. I try to post every single weekday. However, with everything I just said, I'm going to get this edited so you guys can watch it on time. Have a fantastic rest of your Monday, and as always, I will see you in the next video.